Yeah, my journey started about 2.5 years ago with I had a small little spot on my neck that we were actually watching the summer before, in the summer of 2022. I got referred to a head and neck specialist, and he did an ultrasound of it. At the time, it was very, very small, but I did notice it on the side of my neck, and he could feel it. So with the ultrasound, he said, it doesn't really look concerning, but we'll keep an eye on it. So 6 months, we'll schedule an appointment for you. You can come back, we'll do another ultrasound and do that. Well, before the 6 months was up, and it had gone away. So it was like, okay, I can't even feel it anymore after that appointment. And then before the 6 month appointment, it was the size of a pea on the side of my neck. And they immediately scheduled a biopsy and everything. And so we got in for surgery. They biopsied it. They sent it to the lab at the local hospital where I had the biopsy done, because it was a peripheral T-cell lymphoma. That's something that they normally don't see a lot or treat. So they sent the pathology down to Mass General Hospital in Boston to further diagnose, back up the diagnosis and everything. And then in the meantime, I had an appointment with an oncologist, because I asked my head and neck guy. He said it was in your lymph node, and I said, well, who treats that? And he said, well, an oncologist. He goes, I'm not saying you've got cancer right now, but an oncologist treats that particular system. So we've got you scheduled at the local hospital with an oncologist. And that's when, by the time we saw the oncologist, the pathology had come back, and peripheral T-cell lymphoma not otherwise specified, PTCL-NOS, is what my cancer was determined to be. And that's when, as Marcia had mentioned earlier, that he said in his 25 years, this is only the second case he's ever seen, and he was not comfortable treating it. So he referred us to the lymphoma center at Mass General, and we got in with Dr. Jane, and the ball started rolling rather rapidly on treatment and everything. So unfortunately, during this particular journey, I've had a lot of what they call relapse. So we would undergo a treatment, and we may have some success, and all of the original sites are gone, but I would have one or two more sites that had shown up. So we would change and go to another chemotherapy regime or drug therapy or something like that. So we have some partial success, but we would have a relapse. So April of 2024, we got down to a point where we could actually get in for allogeneic stem cell, a bone marrow transplant from an unrelated donor. So we did that. And in August, after one of my exams, it was determined I had two lymph nodes in my groin. So we went through radiation therapy and eliminated those with radiation. And then October of 2024, the cancer was back with a vengeance. So we started, and Dr. Jane was in background frantically searching for what options are available. The one problem we found is that once you go through allogeneic stem cell transplant, you're pretty much omitted from doing any clinical trial. Most clinical trials will not accept patients that have had allogeneic stem cell transplant for one reason or another. They just don't. So all of a sudden, the window of what available therapies may be out there is reduced just because of that one therapy that you had done previously. It eliminates you now from proceeding. So she was able to find this CAR T. It's what they call a CD5. They identified a marker in my cancer that was specifically CD5. So all of my cancer had a marker called CD5. And there is a therapy out there that is, I'm only the third patient in the country that's been dosed with it out of the first at Mass General, the other two were at other locations. That specifically targets the CD5 marker. And with that, we've had some very positive success with that. We're not quite clear of it. I went from 20 locations in my body that had cancer to now I only have one location in my body. And in a few days, we'll be taking the 90-day PET scan. And we'll see if that one spot is gone, if there are any new spots. So we're very, very close to having some very positive success. And even if we're not there, just being reduced from the 20 to the 1 is huge success from my standpoint. You have to celebrate the small victories as you move through this journey, because that reduction in cancer buys me time. So we'll see in a few days what the PET scan reveals, and we'll either be, for the first time in 30 months, in remission, or we've still got a little bit farther to go on the journey. We'll just have to see what the exam tells us. In my case, with the rarity of the lymphoma, being that it was in the T cells, if it was a B cell lymphoma, there was a great deal of chemotherapy options that were available. With it being in the T cell, there's not a lot of available therapies. And with everybody being a little different, makes it even harder to treat. It's you have a smaller window of available therapies to do. So getting to a location where you could get access through the doctor that, oh, I've heard of this therapy that's out there that may work for you. Or we had a conversation with Dr. Jane sometime way back during the journey, where she asked, are you willing to travel? Because we may not have a therapy, a trial program here, but another hospital location may have a therapy that I think might work for you. And I said, Doc, if you tell me there's a location in this country or somewhere else in the world, get me in there. I'll go. Because to me, it's very important, because it was, my life. So I'll go, I'll travel to it. You just have to tell me that you wholeheartedly believe that this therapy will help. And it's an unknown, because, it's a new trial therapy or something like that. And I was on a previous trial at Mass General last year before allogenic stem cell in April, where I know in Dr. Jane's eyes, it was considered a failure because I had relapsed. But in my eyes, I had eight known locations at that time when I went into that particular trial. All of those 8 locations were gone, but I had 2 new locations. So I guess in that case, somebody would say, yes, that was a failure. But in my case, it's like those eight locations are gone. I only have 2. Granted, they're new, so it means I've got a relapse. But 2 is a lot better number than 8. And, it's a positive that you have to move and you have to take forward. It bought me time until she had been talking about she knew of this particular CAR T CD5 therapy, but it hadn't been approved yet. It was going through all of the approval processes and everything. So we were trying everything we could to buy time until this program opened. But being able to get to and it's some cases that's harder than others. I mean, I've got a 70-mile drive, so I'm relatively close. Other people may have to go, several hundred miles or more, which is harder to do. But if you don't, then you have to look at that decision and the ramifications of that decision. I don't want to travel that far. Okay, well, there's a consequence for your action of not doing that, and it's your decision. It's something that you make. But in my eyes, it's like, I'm going to do everything possible. This bug may take me, but I'm going to make them pay for every inch of ground they take, and scratch and claw the whole way and go screaming. But it's I'm not going to roll over and just let this go. I've lost both of my parents to different cancers. So I've seen it from not just my immediate parents, but other family members. And it's like, you know, it could take me, but I'm going to do everything in my power to you know, make it as difficult as possible for this bug to do what it's doing. People that know that these therapies are out there is huge, because the local level, and he was very upfront and admitted it. He's like, you know, we just can't do that here, you know, and you know, I respect that decision because it's a hard decision because a lot of providers know I can do everything. It's like, well, you need to know what you need to know, and if you can't do it, then please forward me to somebody that can, because it's my life. At that point, I'm not interested in your ego. I'm interested in my life. And everyone that I've had on this team from day one has been focused on that. Everything possible to get success and to keep things moving. And yeah, I can't say enough how grateful I am that I was able to get the team that I did that has been very tenacious in finding every possible opportunity for success. I was at a point, really a point of no return, by the time we went into this therapy. So I had listened to all the doctors and everyone. They've been doing this CAR T on other cancers for many, many years and have had success rates with it, with that other cancers. This was a trial, so they hadn't done it on anybody yet. They had done some stuff on the lab. So it's kind of nice to be at the front of the line, but I'd like to be like number 100, not number 3, because by the time they get to number 100, they've kind of ironed out and gotten things lined out, because I was to the point I needed to have success. I was out of options. So it was, you know, a struggle, because I was very happy I was in the program and everything was going well. But there's the pressure, or not the pressure, but the anxiety of I'm only the third person that's had this, so nobody knows. You can't ask the question of a doctor going, can you just give me some generalizations of success rates or anything? Who's like, well, we got 2 other people in front of you, and that's it. That's all we know. Now the success rate was rather quick at the 30-day and at the 60-day. And we're hopeful that at the 90-day, in a few days, that there's still some fighters left in there, and they've taken care of that last little spot, and cleaned up the rest of the blood system to make sure they didn't miss anybody. But we're just going to have to wait and see how that goes. Well, that's always on your mind. But on the other hand, to me, it's no different than, you know, oh, I need to get in the car and go to the store. Well, do I get into a major wreck? You know, I mean, it's just, you get to a point of like, if it happens, I'll deal with it when it comes up. I'm not going to sit here and constantly think on it, because in my mind, that means that it's won and I've lost. So I need to concentrate now on healing myself, because my body, through all the chemo and everything else, is about as beat up as you can get. So I've got appointments with physical therapy to help build my strength back and all of that. And that's where my focus is now. I'm not going to worry about this bug or think about this bug potentially coming back. I'll worry about that when I get, if I have to cross that bridge. I'm not going to sit here and stew on that, because to me, that's a loss. I've given in to the cancer, and I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm going to focus on my recovery, and that's going to take probably the better part of this coming year, to re-strengthen my body. Because before, in May of this year, because of the tumor sizes and pain, I was in a wheelchair. I could no longer walk. Now I'm able to walk about 1.5 miles a day. So it's, you know, small process, and it's amazing how quickly the muscles and everything, if you haven't used them in a while, they say, see ya, I'm out of here, you know, and the simplest tasks become a, you know, excruciating effort. So you need to go and start rebuilding and focusing on that. And that's where I'm focusing my energy, because that's a win. I'm in PT now, so keep the bug out of here. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to concentrate on healing myself and moving forward. And if I happen to come across the diagnosis later on, then I've got time in between now and then that I'm going to live and do what I'm going to do. And if it happens, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm not going to sit here and spend my time thinking about it anymore. I've been in that mode for 2.5 years, and I'm as exhausted as I can get from it. And now that we're ever so close to victory here, I'm not gonna give it another bit of thought, and I'm gonna move forward and start healing my body and my mind, because it takes you through some pretty dark places, and your mind can be your biggest ally and your greatest enemy. So you really have to work and focus on where you can keep that from getting, because it can take you to some very dark places if you're not careful. So, and that's been the hardest thing of this whole, people call it a journey. I'm more calling it a fight, because it's 24/7 for me. There's been no rest. You know, if this was a war and I was a member, a fighting member, I'd be pulled off the front line, sent to the back to rest and recoup, and then I would go back. I don't have that luxury. It's been 24/7 for 2.5 years, and I'm as exhausted as I can get, both physically and mentally, from this whole thing. So now it's time to focus and heal, and focus on me, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to worry about this bug. You know, forget it. I'm focusing on my healing,